Hi guys, and welcome to our newest Path of Exile build guide. We are presenting the good old Toxic Rain Pathfinder, which appears to be a top-tier starter build with the recent reworks. Toxic Rain is one of the best skills to level up a new character with. It is a chaos area bow attack that shoots several arrows in the air that fall down rapidly, creating spore pods that deal overlapping chaos damage in a small area, ramping up quickly with additional instances applied by ballistas. With Pathfinder's Ascendancy, you're well equipped to deal a lot of chaos damage due to the increased wither effect. Another quality of this class is its amazing flask sustain and effectiveness, and as flasks are extremely impactful, you can easily elevate your build with these cheap additions. With the 3.21 rework and passive skill tree upgrades that affect the number of arrows fired, it's considered one of the best early league picks. With literally no equipment, you will be able to start mapping efficiently, and thanks to extra investments, you should be able to kill most of the bosses as well. Its damage is tied to attack speed, area of effect, chaos damage over time, and skill effect duration. You want to set up numerous spore pods that will continuously deal damage to surrounding targets. Toxic Rain, specifically the chaos damage over time from its pods, is your only source of damage. You are going to stack as many pods as possible by increasing your attack speed, and having extra instances cast by up to 6 ballista totems and mirage archer. This build is quite tanky, mainly due to its insane self-sustain from Pathfinder's Ascendancy and increased armor and evasion. You can still get one-shotted, but any damage that doesn't kill you is recovered nearly instantly. You can kill entire screens of minor enemies instantly by quickly covering zones with toxic clouds. Damage against bosses isn't the highest as it needs some time to ramp up, and investments too, but it's certainly there. This is one of the most cost-effective builds in Path of Exile with literally no investments needed. As mentioned already, this build requires literally no unique items to function. However, items like Devouring Diadem, Carcass Jack, and extra Malevolence mods from Watcher's Eye can push this build forward. They are heavily recommended. Other items listed are cheap and easily obtainable alternatives to rare items. The best helmet for this build is it allows you to use additional auras, and helps you with mana sustain, basically fixing it completely. It also allows you to use additional aura, malevolence or haste, as a blessing skill. Starkanya's Head is a decent and budget-friendly option for this build. It offers high defensive utility and extra attack speed. Devoto's Devotion is yet another budget option. It increases movement speed, attack speed, armor, evasion, dexterity, and chaos resistance. It is recommended for better mobility on lower-tier maps. Carcass Jack is one of the best armors for this build, as with increased AoE, you will be able to stack more dots on a single enemy. Watcher's Eye is not exactly a starter build item, but if you plan to use this build for longer, that's where you can improve it greatly. Just pick a jewel which grants bonus chaos multiplier while you are affected by malevolence. This entire build relies on generic rare items with basic mods, and you shouldn't be required to rely on influenced items either. Just focus on scaling your damage by increasing the level of Toxic Rain Gem, attack speed, area of effect, and chaos damage over time multiplier. The defenses are based on auras and passives, but extra spell suppression can be useful too. For the helmet, preferably take an evasion based with high defensive stats like maximum life and spell suppression. Later on you can add mana reservation efficiency, and nearby enemies have reduced chaos resistance, but at this point you should be better off with the Devouring Diadem. For this build, just pick the most basic chest with defensive stats in big quantities. The most valuable would be maximum life, spell suppression, and resistances. You can also try getting an extra curse later on, and find a way to apply Enfeeble of Temporal Chains. A crafted bow is the best in the slot weapon. It will be quite expensive if you wanted to increase your empower level by 3, but this makes this build capable of completing the highest tier maps. On your rare quiver, simply aim for high defensive stats at the start, but later expand it to obtain more valuable offensive mods for chaos damage over time or attack speed. For the base, it's best to pick the one with increased totem placement speed implicit. Get boots with high life and movement speed bonus. You can also try getting boots with elusive or tailwind if you plan to do high tier maps with this build. On the belt, simply aim for defensive stats and strength. You can also use Stygian Vice for the extra abyss socket. On your amulet, get maximum life and chaos. Multiplier are great, but try to have some attributes and resistances too. The best anointments are hardened scars, potency of will or sovereignty. Gloves are among the few items on which you can get chaos. Multiplier, so it's preferred if you look for such a pair, or craft it. Rare jewels should provide extra life and damage bonuses for chaos damage over time. They can also grant chaos damage multiplier, which will be the preferred affix on possibly all those jewels. There aren't any particularly interesting unique flasks for this build, and at the same time, you can greatly increase the effect of magic ones as a Pathfinder, so those are preferred here. Get a life flask with increased amount of life recovered, jade and basalt flask to boost your core defensive stats, and quicksilver and silver flask for better mobility. For suffixes, make sure to get increased attack and movement speed, and bleed and freeze removal. Primary attack skill in this build. You focus on increasing the damage over time effect and ignore the unhit damage it deals. In this primary setup, it is going to be used manually and should be spammed at all times to stack more pods under a single enemy. Socket in your bow with Empower, Void Manipulation, Vicious Projectiles, Efficacy, and Mirage Archer support gems. You are going to use a secondary Toxic Rain setup in form of ballistas. You should be able to have up to 6 of them, and they should be up at all times versus bosses. Support it with Ballista Totem, multiple totems, Vicious Projectiles, Void Manipulation, and Focused Ballista Gems. In this build, you are going to use 3 core auras. Those are Grace, Determination, and Malevolence. First 2 increase your evasion and armor rating, the core defensive layers this build has to offer. Those 2 should be permanently active if you want to stay alive. The third aura is Malevolence. It is DPS oriented, and increases your damage over time. Unless you have a helmet with enchantment that increases the reservation efficiency of any of those 3 auras, you will have to use one as a temporary blessing skill. If possible, socket your auras in the Devouring Diadem or link it to Enlighten support gem. The Blessing aura can only be used with the diadem, and depending on your maximum energy shield, you may need to socket it to Inspiration support gem to reduce its cost. Haste increases your attack, cast and movement speed. You should be able to use the temporary aura from the Vol part of the skill, or in some cases use it as a blessing instead of Malevolence if you can maintain the latter permanently. All the following skill gems don't require any links, so just allocate them wherever able. Steelskin is the recommended guard spell that grants a protective barrier that mitigates some incoming damage and removes bleeding. It can be linked to cast when damage taken support or allocated under your left mouse button to be cast nearly automatically. Dash is the recommended movement spell, but depending on your personal preferences you could also use Flame Dash. Blood Rage is a duration spell that increases your attack speed and allows you to generate frenzy charges. It also deals substantial physical damage to your character, but with Master Surgeon Ascendancy, this is negligible. Despair is the best curse for this build, which reduces chaos resistance of affected enemies. It can be cast manually, or later on applied via ring affix. Temporal Chains and Enfeeble are 2 extra curses that can be used additionally if you have the body armor affix for it. The first one slows down enemies, making them more likely to stay in the radius of your Toxic Rain, and increase the damage. Enfeeble only boosts your defenses. Both curses should only be considered on later stages of the game, and it's advised to have them applied via implicit modifier on gloves. For the Bandits quests, killing them all for 2 extra passive points is the best option. When it comes to the Minor God, we recommend picking up the Soul of the Brine King. It offers additional stun resistance, and eventually, also freeze immunity. Minor gods are much less relevant, so you can literally pick anything. Garukin is worth mentioning for reduced shock effect on you. It's an often overlooked ailment that can get you one-shotted easily. When it comes to the passive tree, it is very simple and straightforward. You will have to allocate most of the bow nodes near Ranger's starting location that increases damage over time with bow skills and the most common life ones around. The order isn't really that important, as the effects are very similar, and the build itself is so powerful regardless of your equipment that all of them will work. The most notable ones are Aspect of the Eagle, Hunter's Gambit, Multishot, and Master Fletcher. The additional projectiles that were added in patch 3.21 make a massive difference for this and basically any other bow build. From that you can either allocate points nearby, or take the long route to allocate exceptional performance with the corresponding skill effect duration mastery. For other masteries, it's recommended to take the Life and Mana Flask mastery that increases charge sustain on your life flasks, increased area of effect from bow mastery, spell suppression mastery, here either with the extra 3% of the chance being lucky if it is not capped on your character. When it comes to life mastery, either select plus 50 maximum life or the 10% more life if you have sufficient masteries allocated. On higher levels, just fill all the nearby jewel sockets, and remaining life and spell suppression nodes. If you are not using the Devouring Diadem, and struggle with mana, you can spend some points to get the Mana Drinker node, possibly alongside the mastery to reduce the mana cost of skills. For the Ascendancy passives, it's best to allocate them in the following order: Nature's Reprisal, Nature's Adrenaline, Master Surgeon, and Nature's Boon. That's mainly due to lower effect and selection of flask available on lower levels, so those latter passives have smaller effect early on. That's all for this guide, so thank you for staying with us until the end, and see you in the next video.